Assiniboia and St. James were very much a part of Canada's developing aviation industry during the 1920s. The first air travel and transport company in Manitoba was Aerial and Transport Taxi Company Limited, and it was established in December 1919. They operated from an aerodrome next to Eaton's recreation ground on Portage Avenue. Within the next 6 months, 4 more companies were established using similar small aerodromes in the greater Winnipeg area. Pictured is an aerial transport and taxi company advertisement in the Henderson Directory. The St. Charles Aerodrome was one of the stops along the first Trans-Canada air flight, organized to demonstrate that coast-to-coast commercial air transport was feasible. When Western Canada Airways was established in 1926, the company set up a land-plane base at Kirkfield Park, near the current location of the museum, and a seaplane base on the Red River at Brandon Avenue. Pictured is the hangar of the Canadian Airways in 1920. In 1927, the Canadian Department of National Defence began a campaign to stimulate interest in aviation in Canada. 2 biplanes were promised to any community who hired a flying instructor and air engineer and built a licensed airfield. The Aviation League of Manitoba responded by sponsoring the creation of the Winnipeg Aeroplane Club, later called the Winnipeg Flying Club. After conducting research on the different areas in Winnipeg, the club decided that St. James would be the most suitable location for a training field. The municipality offered 165 acres for the first field, which included a cabin and a hangar. The hangar, though, was only big enough for folding wing aircraft. At the official opening on May 24, 1928, the airfield was named Stevenson Field in honor of pioneer aviator Captain Frederick Stevenson. Frederick Stevenson began flying in the Royal Flying Corps when he joined in 1917 in England. Stevenson grew up in Saskatchewan but briefly attended Wesley College, later University of Winnipeg, before enlisting in the 196th Battalion and leaving for England. During World War I, Stevenson was successful as a pilot and won the Distinguished Flying Cross, as well as the Belgian and French Croix de Guerre. Though it was uncommon among wartime pilots, Stevenson found employment as a pilot following the war. He flew delegates between London and Paris during the 1919 Peace Conference and went to Russia to train White Army pilots. Later, he returned to Canada to work with the Canadian Aircraft Company and the Ontario Provincial Air Service. In 1927, Stevenson returned to Winnipeg to join Western Canada Airways as a bush pilot. During its years of operation, from 1926 to 1930, Western Canada Airways played an integral role in establishing flying as a commercial venture in Canada, rather than solely a military or recreational pursuit. When James A. Richardson came to Winnipeg in 1912, it was to take charge of the western branches of James Richardson and Sons grain business. He established Western Canada Airways because he recognized the potential applications of air travel to northern exploration, freight transport, mail delivery, and passenger travel. By 1929, the company was the second largest aviation company in the British Empire, with 51 single-engine aircraft, piloted by war veterans and bush flyers. These planes had to be able to land on wheels, skis, or floats, because pilots were required to land in remote areas with variable landing equipment and unpredictable weather. As you can see in this picture of Frederick Stevenson loading supplies, most planes also had an open cockpit. One of the most significant projects undertaken by Western Canada Airways was transporting personnel and equipment to Fort Churchill to set up a drilling operation. Stevenson was one of 2 pilots who conducted the task, making 27 round trips in 30 days and traveling 9,806 kilometers. Stevenson's skill was further demonstrated when moving 23 tons of mining equipment between Cormorant Lake and Cold Lake. He flew 20,184 kilometers in 28 days. It was the largest freighting contract in North America at the time and proved that it was more economical to fly equipment than to haul it over land. In 1928, Stevenson lost his life in an airplane crash in the Pas when his engine failed on a test flight. Shortly after, the new airfield in St. James was named in his honor. In the same year, he was posthumously awarded the Harmon Trophy, an international award for outstanding flying. A river and lake in northern Manitoba, as well as a Winnipeg school, are named after him. Pictured are Stevenson's parents at the 1928 opening of Stevenson Field. In 1930, Western Canada Airways merged with Aviation Corporation of Canada and the flying interests of the Canadian Pacific Railway and Canadian National Railway. James A. Richardson continued to lead the company, and within a year it controlled most air transport business in Canada. Winnipeg Airport was renamed Winnipeg James Armstrong Richardson International Airport in 2006 in recognition of the role of Richardson in these formative aviation companies in Manitoba. Pictured is Stevenson Airfield in the year 1920. Stevenson Airfield continued to expand throughout the 1920s and 30s. The Royal Canadian Air Force and commercial companies, including Western Canada Airways, began to use the field. Pictured is Alex Kent, the youngest commercial pilot in Canada in 1933 at 19 years old. His fascination with flying was sparked when his father took him to the Winnipeg Flying Club for his 15th birthday. The newly formed Trans-Canada Airlines selected Winnipeg to be its operating headquarters in 1936 because of its central location in the country, topography, and abundance of experienced pilots. To meet the needs of large commercial transport planes, Stevenson Field was expanded to include 5 hangars and 3 hard surface runways. These runways had previously been surfaced with sod, clay, or loam. Also at this time, 800 acres of land from the estate of Lady Strathcona was donated to the airfield. In 1937, the City of Winnipeg and the Municipality of St. James entered into an agreement whereby Stevenson Field became a joint municipal airport administered by the St. James Winnipeg Airport Commission. In 1940, operation of the field was taken over by the federal government. During World War II, there were more additions which included a repair depot, manufacturing base, and air traffic control system. Through the 1950s and 60s, passenger terminal facilities were expanded twice. When Trans-Canada Airlines became Air Canada in 1964, an engineering base and air cargo terminal were built at the airport, then called the Winnipeg International Airport. Pictured here is a plane picking up cargo from the Assiniboine River in 1932. Thank you for joining me for this St. James Centennial feature on aviation. For more content celebrating 100 years of St. James, visit our website at stjamesmuseum.com.